So, welcome to the Audiojack podcast. Is that what we're going to call it?
Well, it doesn't have a name yet, but for now, let's go with that. We're celebrating 20 years of making music together, and we decided to do a podcast.
Yeah, telling stories about all the sort of things that led up to Audiojack and some things that happened along the way.
We'll start at the beginning, at the very beginning. This first episode is pre-Audiojack. We decided to call it "In the Beginning There Was Jack." We hope you enjoy listening to it. We don't know what's going to happen. We've not really got any fixed format other than that the first episode is going to be a little bit about who we were before Audiojack, our DJ experiences, our experiences and influences in music, and how we got together. And by the end of it, you're probably going to be wondering why Jamie was my friend.
All right, so let's start with let's go right back to the beginning. Okay.
Yes.
Where did you tell me a little bit about when you were born?
Well, I was born in 1980 in Barnsley. What about you?
Yeah, I was born in. That was actually just a joke. But since we've gone on to it, I was born in Hull in 1979. So I'm a little bit older.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's fast forward to
the 90s.
Well, let's fast forward to when we started like really getting into music. I guess like what was some of your what were like your early what was your first bit of music that you bought or got bought?
Well, the first album I ever bought was Elvis Greatest Hits when I was about 8, W.H. Smith's in Barnsley. But in terms of dance music, my first sort of real sort of like eye-opener was I was on a holiday in Devon on a campsite in probably about 93 or 93 maybe. And some lads from Manchester were on the campsite and they were like, have you ever heard any like Stu Allen on Key 103 or anything like that? And I was like, no. They were like, yeah. And they gave me a mixtape, which I put in my Walkman to try out. And I was just like, this is amazing. What's this? And it really pricked my ears up. And being a sort of, an ADHD child, the speed of it really worked with me. And I just found that that music really, really resonated with me. There was techno, there was hardcore, there was happy hardcore, there was some house, there was breaks, there was garage, but it was pretty fast music, and it really sort of like it really connected with me. What about you?
Well, I was thinking about this actually, and whilst like I always credit like Orbital and Left Field being the sort of my first intro into proper electronic music in the 90s, I actually remember going to one of my friends' houses when I was really little, like maybe 7 or 8 years old or something like that, and he had a tape called Sounds of the Synthesizer, and it had stuff like Popcorn and Guru Josh, Infinity, and stuff like that on it, and it was all, and like some Kraftwerk stuff, but it was all like someone's like cover versions just on like all on the same synthesizer. But I didn't even really know what that was, that was, it didn't register that was like electronic music back then. But I think for sure, I suppose like Depeche Mode was, although like they still kind of feel like a band, that was all sort of synthy music, and I really started getting into that stuff in the 90s. But then I think when I heard Snivelization by Orbital, that just felt like it was in the future. And I was just like, wow, what's this?
So your influences were a lot cooler than mine.
Hey, well, look, I definitely got into hardcore a little bit later. That was, it kind of a similar story. We used to have like a family gathering every Boxing Day at my auntie's house, and I had a cousin who is a year older than me, and we were chatting, and she said, "Have you ever been to And she said, "Do you know what a rave is?" And I said, "No." And she gave me her headphones, and it was hardcore, and I was like, "Whoa, what is this?" And she said, "I've been going to these raves. There's one in the town where you live." I had this nightclub called the Floral Hall, which was like an old theatre place, and they used to do sort of like typical, discos there that just all the sort of the town would go to on a Friday night. But then for some reason, these rave promoters came in and started doing this rave called Atlantis on a Saturday night, and she'd been going to it, and she said that it was like the best thing ever. And I was only 16 at the time, definitely didn't look 16 either, so there's no way I was getting into any clubs. However, my best friend's mum's best friend was the head doorman at this place, and we managed to go and he let us in. And I can't remember who was playing on that night. It was probably like Top Groove or someone like that, and MC Doma. And well, it just absolutely blew my mind. And I was like, this is the best thing ever. And I just wanted to be involved in electronic music.
I remember in I think it must have been year 9 in school, and I saw that DJ Sire was playing in Wakefield on like a Wednesday night or a Thursday night or something like that. I was like, I'm definitely going to that. And like, I went, and like, I remember going to school the next day, and I was like, yeah, I've gone to that. And they were like, no, you haven't. I was like, I did.
Yeah, I think you were lucky. You managed to get away with like going out when you were a bit younger than me.
I did start going out very young.
Well, like when I went into the club, so that door guy let me in, and he was the head doorman. So the other doorman were like, "All right, Terry, we'll go by what he says." And then I went to the bar to get a drink. The barman just went, "Are you joking? You're not 18." I was like, "Well, I'm in here, aren't I?" I was like, "Yeah, fair enough."
Oh, brilliant. So how did you get around to DJing? What was your introduction to that?
So it was all still to do with the hardcore stuff. So me and a friend at the time, actually, do you know what? I think even before what I'm going to move on to there, because I started running hardcore raves at my youth club. I mean, they were never very good. Like, we'd only get sort of like 5 or 10 people coming to them, but we were very determined. We had so I was doing the DJing on 2 stereos playing tapes. So we didn't even have any kind of like mixing things. We were just like playing tapes, pausing it, playing another tape, pausing it. And then the inside of the DJ booth was plastered with MC lyrics, and my friend was doing all the MCing. But before that, we actually got a DJ gig doing the same thing, just playing tapes, doing the manager of the leisure centre where we used to play basketball. It was his 40th birthday, and me and my friend Sean, who you met, R.I.P.
Yeah.
We got asked to do his 40th birthday party, and we just went and played like sort of house tracks that we were into at the time. But then the proper actual like learning to mix style DJing was the youth club where I used to do those parties. They had a pair of belt drive turntables, and they let me borrow them one summer when I was 14. And I think I'd managed to get hold of a few hardcore records, and I had no idea how to mix. I didn't know anything about sort of scratching the first beat in or anything like that. So I just used to try and like match the beats. And then as soon as they converged and got to the same point, I'd quickly like flip the crossfader across, and that was like my mixing right up until I got to uni when I learned how to do it properly. How about you?
Well, for me, it started with my friend Paul, who was a few years older than me when I was about year 9, year 10. So that's, what's that, 13, 14, 15. He was, I think, 3 years older than me, and he had a bright green Opel Kadett. And, when you're 15 and you've got a mate who can drive, that's next level, isn't it? So he used to pick me up, and we'd have the music on really loud, and we'd be going out in the cars looking for girls, stupid teenage stuff, doing donuts in car parks, but always with really loud, fast music on. And I just got the bug for it. And he was a DJ. He had decks. He had records. So I just used to go around to his house and play. And we'd go on Saturdays. We'd go to Leeds, go to all the record shops, come back, have a mix, have a few drinks, and then sometimes go out. Sometimes just keep mixing at home. But and then eventually I sort of decided to get myself my own belt drive decks, which were great. And yeah, I got some in my house and got the bug for it.
Yeah, so I didn't sort of have much success with those belt drives. I kind of went off the boil a little bit after a while. I realised it was just too hard, and I didn't think I'd be able to do it. And then when I got to uni, I'd bought a few records. I had like a little collection of about 20 records. I had some hardcore stuff, and then I also had, I think I've got DeLacy Hideaway. That was like a double EP.
Can you remember what your first vinyl that you bought was?
Well, I don't remember. Yeah, I do actually. It was Opposite Attracts by Paula Abdul. But that wasn't to DJ with. That was just like an LP to play on the record player back when I was like 11 or something like that. But I think the first, I think I'd got stuff from charity shops, and I think DeLacy Hideaway is probably the first record that I remember buying. for the purpose of DJing.
First record I remember buying is Buckethead's The Bomb
Oh yeah.
from MTV, from HMV in Wakefield. And I remember buying it because it was $1.99 and I thought that was a good deal. I loved the song, but like I also liked the price.
Yeah, but I mean that's that
It might not
track.
have been the first one, but it was the first one I remember buying.
That track, I remember when Ibiza Uncovered first came out on TV. I remember, I can't remember whether it was that or another one that was the theme tune for it, but that was always, that track always reminded me of what Ibiza was musically. And I'd never been before. I think that was like in the late 90s. I didn't go for the first time until 2002, which we'll get onto.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was always like a big Ibiza track for me in the 90s.
Thinking about it now, it must have been more late 90s, that one. So I must have bought records before that. But
Yeah.
my memories are awful already. So
Yeah. So what about first clubbing experiences then? I think we touched on it, didn't we, with the raves and stuff.
yeah.
Where did you first like go and listen to house music?
So I had, again, some older friends when I was a teenager who were a couple of years older than me. I was quite tall. I'm still am, but I was quite tall, quite young, so I could kind of pull it off when I was a bit younger to get into the club. So we used to go up to Leeds and we go to Vague and to Speed Queen, and it was a whole different world than anything I was brought up with. I mean, I was brought up in coal mine in South Yorkshire where blokes were blokes, and you certainly didn't go to a gay club and prance around all weekend. But I absolutely loved it. And I just felt like I'd found another world entirely that just I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And it started my obsession with living for the weekend, which spanned a good 10 years of my life, where the whole week was just thought about where I was going to go at the weekend, what I was going to do, planning it, making clothes for it sometimes, all that jazz. That was sort of about 95 to about 98. 99, I think. How about you those years?
Well, that was uni for me, so I was definitely like balls deep in clubbing then. But before that, in about 96, so I was like mainly going to the raves because that's where I could get into, and then I did manage to get into one other club. I went with a load of older mates, and it was up in Brid Spa, which I've just heard. Like my little sister just said that the Prodigy did a gig at Brid Spa like a week ago or something like that,
Really?
which is nuts.
I went to Scarborough to the one in Scarborough, the Alpamare, the slide one, and I was sat out in the outdoor pool, which was warm, and then there was a gig going on the next door, and I could hear the music. It's Everything playing. I'm just sat out in the thing listening to It's Everything for free in the pool. It's amazing. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, that's all right. So yeah, there was a party called Lick at Brid Spa, and then I did start going out in Hull. A little bit after that, and there was, I mean, the club scene in Hull back then was great. There was a club called The Room, which used to have DJs like Alistair Whitehead playing, Graham Park. There was the Eclipse, Oasis. It was a really good city to go out raving in back in those days. And then quite soon after that was time for me to go to uni, and I went to uni in Coventry, and then it was all of the clubs in Coventry and Birmingham. And by that time, I kind of I got quite into trance as well. I could really, or Epic House as it was called then.
The Super Club years. We're talking 98, 99, 2000,
97.
2001.
Yeah, 97. So I got to uni in late 97. And the first gig that I went to was Mark Moore, who is from S Express, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mark Moore, and I can't remember who else was playing at they had one of the best student unions in the country called The Edge, and they used to have good DJs, 2 headliners on every weekend, every Friday and every Saturday, and that was like my first experience going clubbing there. But then I was literally out every night of the week for years. If it wasn't going out proper clubbing, it was just sort of going out drinking with friends and stuff. But yeah, I was like, uni for me was very much about the social experience, unfortunately more than the academic side of it, because I didn't finish my degree. But I think that I had the absolutely the best time, and definitely a huge character building experience.
I didn't go to uni, but the late 90s for me, I think probably about 97 or 98, I fell in love with Gatecrasher in Sheffield. Being a South Yorkshire lad, we'd drive down there, and again, it was like another world that I'd never experienced. So Gatecrasher, and then I also fell in love with trance then, and then my weekends started being very much about driving up and down the M1. Whether it was all the way up to Scotland to the Arches, all the way down to London to Turn Mills, or to Birmingham to God's Kitchen, to Passion in Colville. But more often than not, it's centered around Gatecrasher for me on a Saturday night. Sometimes I go out on a Friday, sometimes and go all the way through till Sunday. Sometimes I just go to Gatecrasher and then to Insomniacs and then to the Howard, which is a pub in Sheffield across the road from the train station, where we used to DJ and put on parties for people who were still out.
So how old were you when you started doing the Howard?
Probably about 20.
Yeah.
Probably about 19 or 20. It
wasn't. That'll have been like 2000, something like that.
Yeah. There's a guy called Paddy who run it, and loads of us DJs would go down and play. And there was one actually where I curated it. It's mad. You got to go see this place. It's just an old man's pub across from the train station, and I curated a Sunday. I was thinking about starting a record label. I didn't do it at the time, but I curated it, and I think I had a budget of about £100, and I had a great lineup. There was like Eddie Halliwell in a pub. Who else was playing back then? Hattie Love Hearts. Various of the DJs whose names slip me now. My friend Paul, I got him on, the guy who introduced me to DJing. Took him to do some gigs. Another sad RIP.
Oh yeah.
Good friends lost too soon, but it was a really, really fun, loose time to be in Sheffield in the late 90s, and I've got a lot of fond memories of it. And that Super Club era, you can look back on it and sort of, in many ways, can't you? As a full grown up now, you look back and you're like, wow, like I wouldn't go there now and do that now, but at the time it was my life. I would spend some of the week, making clothes. If I couldn't really afford to go out and buy the sort of cyber gear that I wanted to wear, so I just would make it myself. And yeah,
I mean, that was one of the nice things about that era, that it was just very sort of like have fun and make fun outfits and stuff like that, and everyone would just look completely wacky, wouldn't they?
Absolutely, and you could be as loose and as free as you wanted because there's pretty much no cameras in there.
Yeah,
it was a great time, that experience of being able to go in a club and just be know that you are liberated and that you are entering another world, and you can leave and then there's no evidence there for.
Yeah, I mean that's what living for the weekend was, wasn't it? People would be sort of working a 9 to 5 during the week, and then you just escape all sort of normal reality during the weekend, where you just go out and like go to these mad places with this crazy music, amazing people that like many people that you end up sort of being friends with for the rest of your life that you meet on the dance floor.
Absolutely, there's shared connections. They live long, don't they?
Yeah. So what was the first DJ gig that you ever did?
Oh wow, I can't remember. What's your other thing? You tell me what yours was.
Mine was it was in Hornsey where I grew up. It was at the Waves. It was like the club at the end of a caravan park, and there was like 2 clubs in Hornsey. There was the Floral Hall where they did the raves and the sort of like everyone go and have a Friday night knees up with a cheesy DJ, and then there was the Waves, which was like same kind of thing really. It was just at the other end of town, but they'd hire it out to people, and one of my friends put on a house night there, and he knew that I'd got into DJing, so he gave me a shot. So that was like my first time DJing, and after that I was just hooked. I couldn't wait to get on the decks. I wasn't nervous, which was weird. I mean, funnily enough, the last time I remember being nervous DJing was when I had to DJ for some of my my kids' friends' kids' party. But yeah, so that was the first time, and then I started getting some DJ gigs when I was at uni as well. So yeah, it wasn't until the late 90s when I started getting proper gigs. Well, I mean, unless you class kind of the sort of doing tape to tape DJing, but I don't really class that as the same thing. The first time when I was like mixing vinyl, that was there.
Yeah, I can't remember. Sadly, I'll see if something comes back to me, but it will have been sometime. It will have been sometime in the mid to late 90s. My memory's not great from those years, for many reasons.
And what about tinkering around with music production? You had like a little like a keyboard workstation or something that you were.
Yeah. Like, I loved it. I'd just sit up in my. It was mostly just like just play back with synth patterns and stuff like that up in my bedroom. But I did that in the late '90s, early '90s. But the real music production, was was started when I met you. Really,
Yeah.
you had a little bit more experience than I did, I think, before we started.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't. So I had a friend at school who came in and brought a tape which was all like sort of breakbeaty sort of stuff. It was like sort of charity shop prodigy. It was like
Right.
really sort of cheap and cheerful stuff. But it was called Jesus on Ease, and it had all been made on this program called Octamed on the Amiga.
I like the name Charity Shop Prodigy for an album, by the way.
Yeah, so he said I can get you a copy of this music program if you want. It was on the Amiga and I had one, so I got it and it was kind of like a sort of like it was like 8 rows of vertically scrolling numbers, and you had to put in a number and that would access like one of sort of 10 samples or something like that. So you could have a kick drum sample in there on number one, and you had to change the 0 to a 1. When it went down and it hit that one, it would just play the sample. You couldn't pitch it, you couldn't change anything to do with like the notes. It would just play the samples. So yeah, I made a few tunes uh, doing that, but it never really went anywhere.
You did maths at uni, didn't you?
Yeah.
Do you think
Yeah.
maths has helped you with the productions?
Yeah, 100%. I think like some people say, like music production is maths. I mean, I think that's maybe a little bit too much of a generalization, but I think it definitely helps with kind of because everything's sort of very structural, and there is a lot of kind of numbers involved in sort of frequencies and things like that. So I think it definitely helps, but by no means I think it's a prerequisite to get into music to sort of have any sort of affinity with numbers. I think anyone can do it, and I think sometimes the way that music is structured, especially dance music, could sometimes be a little bit inhibiting to creativity. If you try and stick to the sort of like 4/8/16 structures,
Yeah.
sometimes it can get a little bit boring, especially with like AI coming in now. I think it's better to sort of go off piste a little bit and do things a little bit differently.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So are we at the millennium yet?
Yes.
About there? Where did you go for the millennium? Can you
I
remember?
worked. I
Did you?
worked. Yeah. We were offered. So like, at the time, I was going out in Birmingham a lot, and I used to go to a club called Wobble in I can't remember the district now, but it was a very famous place owned by Phil Gifford. Sorry, well he was the main promoter there, and I used to go there all the time. And then I started working in the cloakroom and behind the bar, and I get DJ gigs every now and again. And they offered triple time to work the Millennium, so I went and worked the Millennium behind the bar, and then I went to an after party afterwards where I took 2 microdots and everyone else fell asleep, and I was just wandering around looking at the spiders on the ceiling for hours.
That's just reminding me of a story I'm going to tell later. um, I didn't do a big party for that one, but I was certainly not short of parties during those years. I remember Gatecrasher doing like, I'm sure they used to do like Christmas Eve parties, and that you could go out on Christmas Eve and mad. Imagine
Yeah,
that.
I mean we've done gigs on Christmas Day before,
Well,
haven't
that's
we?
true. That's true. We have, yeah. But
But we're not there yet.
no. Yeah, so that was fine, but I remember like the excitement at that time around the millennium. There was more hope in the world. There was, a sense of like,
Well, apart from the what was the thing that everyone was scared of, like
the millennium bug.
yeah, the Millennium Bug. That was it. Yeah, where all the
Oh, the numbers.
all the computers had reset and the world had ended.
That sounds like one of your nightmares. Can't put the numbers back in order. Yeah, so then we get to around 2001. By this time, I loved Ibiza. I mean, I first went when I was 16 with one of my friends, and I'd never experienced anything like it. I mean, do you like 16-year-olds go on holiday with their friends now? Is that something that still happens? Feels weird now. Feels like way too young, but I was 16.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't.
No. But yeah, then I went again when I was 17 and 18. I went every year. My focus for if I had to, such a simple life when I was a teenager that I'd get to like April and I'd be like, oh, I need to get a job because I need to go to Ibiza. I need a job for 2 months. So just go and get a job, get 2 months' wages. Like, right, that's it. I'm off to Ibiza now for a holiday. And then, by the time of the millennium, I was itching to go and do more. I was itching to go and spend more time there. And in 2001, the Howard, the pub I mentioned before in Sheffield, Paddy and Rob Van Geek and Bonner, the people who were involved in it, they decided to take it to Ibiza and do it on the West End in San Antonio in a club called Play 2. And they went out there that summer in 2001. They had an amazing time, came back telling us all how good it was and everything. And then the next year, 2002, they couldn't go. They couldn't go and do it again, but the club wanted to do it again. So 3 of us, me, Rob, and a guy called James, we all said that we'd go and do it. So we packed up our stuff. I got a job for 2 months to get some money, and then flew out to Ibiza with my records in 2002. Weren't you in Greece in 2001 or something?
Well, yeah, no, it was in 2000 actually. The initial intention was me and a friend from uni, Mike. We were both like well into DJ, and he was the one that taught me how to DJ actually, because he had a pair of 1210s when I got to uni. So it was like, that was much easier than with direct drive turntables to learn how to do it properly. So shout out to you, Mike, for that. And at the end of the year 2000 was when we both finished uni, and we wanted to go and do a summer somewhere to DJ. And obviously the first thought was Ibiza, and we looked, and the Ibiza holidays were just really expensive. So like, right, we've got a limited budget. Let's look on Teletext, which is where you found cheap holidays back then, because the internet didn't exist. Well, it did, but you certainly couldn't look up that sort of thing on there. And we went to see what was within our budget, and Kavos in Corfu was. So we went there, and we thought to ourselves, well, everybody will be going to Ibiza to try and DJ. So if we go somewhere different, then maybe we'll have more of a chance of getting gigs. So we went there, and that was the rise of UK garage. So house gigs were very, very thin on the ground. We did end up playing a few places, but it was all about UK garage, and I hated it. I mean, I hated the fact that it was all about that, and everyone was into that and not house music, and we didn't have any of those records. Excuse me, didn't have any of those records, and there weren't record shops there to get more stuff. But I mean, also I didn't have any interest in playing that sort of music at that time anyway. That said, after being there for 6 months, I loved it.
So when did you transition from harder music to house?
All right, so that's good. That's a good question. So I was always into house and always into. So house came first.
It was more eclectic then, wasn't it? You could have more eclectic tastes.
So the reason that I got into house was I started going to the gym with my friend Sean when we were about 14, and we'd get these house tapes from our friends to go and do weight training to in the gym. We got into the music that way, and then we got Sky at home and MTV, and there was the MTV Party Zone, and that had all like the sort of like the commercial house tracks at that time. So stuff like Gat the Core Passion, and I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. But anyway, I used to watch that religiously every Friday night, and I loved it.
I didn't know that. I did that as well. I didn't know that you did that as well.
Okay. And then that was before I was old enough to go out. And then I started going out to these hardcore raves, because that was the only place that I could go to, and I got into that. That I was maybe into hardcore for a couple of years, and then I grew out of it. But at the same time, I was working for my uncle, and one of the other guys that I was working with there started giving me tapes of Northern Exposure and stuff like that. And so he was giving me Polo Confold, Goa Trance tapes, and the Sashut and Digweed stuff. And I really got into that. So I was still into the house stuff. Then I got into trance. So all through uni, I was into trance and house, just sort of like two things happening synonymously. And then towards the end of uni, that's when I first started going to Sunday Central.
Right.
So Sunday Central started at the church. So, well, it was probably somewhere else before that, but the first time that I went was at the church in Birmingham. And that was just on Sundays. So I started going to that a few times, but they weren't really playing hard house. They were playing what we call banging house. It was like just a bit more up tempo house stuff back then. Things like Tall Paul, Commisera, Let Me Show You, and you'd get like like maybe like Darude Sandstorm and things like that. That kind of energy. It wasn't like proper hard house like the sort of like Nucleus and Tidy Track stuff. And then after uni, when I got back to Hull, everyone was playing that. They'd all got well into hard house. And I was like, well, if I want to get any DJ gigs, I'm just going to have to start playing this stuff. So what I did is I started playing my trance and more banging house stuff a bit faster and doing the warm-ups.
Right.
But then gradually, by sort of being more exposed to that music, I just kind of fell into that a bit more, and I started really liking it. I found it a bit too simple and kind of joke. I don't want to say childish, but that was like, I think that was sort of my feeling at the time. I like the sort of the complexity and the sort of like intelligent feeling of trance and stuff like that. You know, there was lots going on there, and then hard house was a bit sort of like bump, 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 bump. But that said, on a big sound system, simple music sounds good, and I did start getting into it and did start enjoying it. So I did start DJing that quite a lot, and ended up getting quite a name for myself DJing around Hull. And that was kind of what I was playing when I came to Ibiza.
Right. Yeah.
So I had a little bit of all sorts with me. I had some house, some trance, and some hard house as well. But I think the hard house was probably the thing where I was trying to get the gigs in Ibiza. So yeah, let's just explain that as well. So in 2002, that was my idea as well. I didn't have anywhere to play, but I just took a box of records out and went with the girl I was going out with at the time. Got a 2-week holiday and hoped to stay.
So for me, those Gatecrasher years, they weren't sort of around the millennium, 2001. They were booking quite an eclectic DJs. Timo Maas was playing there quite a bit. Sander Kleinenberg, more of the sort of proggy DJs. You know, Dave Seaman would play there now and again. Oakenfold, obviously, it's a bit more trancey, but like there's still quite a bit of house in there, and it really like. I really felt like it was capturing my attention. Like, you know, back then my favourite DJ was Paul van Dyk, but the proggy stuff was starting to grab me, and I started to go down to nights like Renaissance in Sheffield to see Sasha and Digweed. Sorry, not Sheffield, Nottingham.
I was going to say where,
Nottingham,
yeah.
And it just felt a bit more grown up and a bit more like. It just connected with me a little bit more as I was getting a bit older. So I started to sort of move more towards the sort of proggy house. And then Ibiza at the time, you know, there was a lot of funky house around the turn of the millennium, 2001, 2002. And I mean, it's just good party music, isn't it? When you go out and have fun, and you just felt really fun. And it just started to pull me in.
I mean, the thing is, when all the other people that you're knocking about with all love that and go out to those parties, just the same way as the way that I sort of fell into hard house, that's, you know, you kind of, yeah. And there was tracks that sort of like crossed over between the two, like Love Story, you know, which was sort of like get played in the house parties and in the sort of like more trancey places. So, you know, it didn't seem such a divide then between the two things. You know, everybody was going out to everything, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Azizo DeBase.
Yeah,
Dooms Night played everywhere.
But that was also getting played in garage UK garage parties as well. You know, that's classed as a UK garage classic as well now.
Yeah, so we arrive in Ibiza 2002, quite a melting pot of experiences. We've got some hard house, we've got some trance, we've got some house. Had you made your peace with garage by then, or were you still?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, because I didn't really know anybody that was into garage like back in Hull, then, you know, it wasn't really something that I continued exploring.
It felt quite southern, didn't it?
Yeah.
For us northerners.
Yeah.
Garage. We had a big scene in the north, a big house and.
I mean,
scene.
speed garage, that was a different thing, wasn't it? Because,
Yeah.
you know, like there was Niche in Sheffield, which was huge, and then when I was at uni in Birmingham, I used to go to speed garage places there as well. So I was very much into that.
I actually went to Niche once by mistake when I was about 17, and it was one of the most terrifying experiences of my life in Sheffield. I was just way too young. I got dressed up as if I was going to Gatecrasher, and then went to Niche, and that wasn't the place for people who were wearing that sort of clothes. And people were just looking at me really, really, really oddly, and I was like, I feel really weird. And my friend who I was with, who was a bit older, like, I'm just going to the toilet. And he was like, you all right? I was like, yeah, I think so. And I went in the toilet, and I pushed open a toilet cubicle, and there was just a guy in there with his pants down, pleasuring himself. And I was just like, sorry. And then walked back out, and I was like, can we go somewhere else? I don't think I'm big enough for this. Yeah, that was one of my first experiences in that sort of club. But then 2002, You got your package holiday.
Yeah.
I had planned to go for the summer, but I'd also paid on a package holiday on the off chance something fell through and I had a flight back home. But that flight was sacked off as soon as we got there and did our first gigs. And yeah, I think it was about May when we first started in Play 2, and that was just fantastic. You know, you feel like you've made it. You're in Ibiza, you've got gigs. You know.
Yeah, I mean that was a nice venue for a bar for sure, and I had no idea that was like a Howard connection.
Yeah, it was the Howards at Play 2 with me and James and Geek, and then obviously we needed some other DJs to play as well. Being greedy DJs, we didn't want to give too many sets away, but we were open to a few other people playing. But this isn't how we met, is it?
No.
So how did we meet?
So if you remember, where did everybody find jobs back then? Do you remember?
Everybody went to a pub in San Antonio called The Ship.
Yeah.
At the top of the West End, and there was a notice board in there that had jobs, flyering jobs, PR jobs, and the Holy Grail now and again, DJs wanted.
Yeah.
That's the one we were looking for. So we went in independently, didn't know each other, just happened to be there at the same time. Both saw the same notice. A guy called Joe, who was trying to start a party.
Yeah.
And
I've got no idea what he wanted to call it or the concept or where he wanted to do it.
Can you remember what the bar was called where we had a meeting?
Not a Scooby-Doo.
A bar in San Antonio somewhere. There was a DJ meeting where this guy called Joe wanted to gather and choose some names, and we both turned up, and we just happened to be sat near each other, I think, during this rather shambolic meeting about an event that didn't happen.
Can you remember anybody else that was there? What was the
a cappella guy?
Oh yeah. That was a sad tale that we'll get onto maybe later on. And what was he called? It wasn't Fletch or something like that. It was like a tall guy from Manchester or the skinhead.
I can't remember. I need your photographic memory for these things. But it was a non-starter really. The event never took off. But what it did do is introduce me and Jamie.
Yeah. So I guess that was probably quite getting quite close to when we were getting kicked out of where we lived. In fact, I might even have been living in a different place after that.
I think we were still on the end of our holiday, maybe at the end of our holiday week, and we were just like, we need somewhere to live now. And you were like, oh, we need somewhere to live now.
Yeah. So we all decided to move in together, didn't we? It was me, the girl that I was going out with at the time, Claire, and you and James, wasn't it?
Yeah, me and James. And where was it we stayed? It was in
the Blue Apartments opposite.
Was it called the Blue Apartments?
Yeah, it was called the Blue Apartments, and it was opposite.
Down by Kanya.
Yeah, I'm trying
back on the road.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what. I think it's opposite it's opposite a gym now actually in San Antonio, but it used to be. So Fatso's is a good point of reference because that's kind of like diagonally over the road from it.
Can you remember what the guy who ran it was called?
No, do you? Mario or no? I can't
Maybe.
remember.
This guy. This guy was crazy. Yeah. Like, he got very angry very quickly about the slightest little infringements. But I mean, I suppose, looking back, we probably were. I probably was a little bit annoying in terms of causing a bit of a mess. But this is maybe the first part as to why you wonder why Jamie was still friends with me even after this summer. So we moved in, Jamie and his at the time girlfriend, and me and James, and we were just being daft all the time. We were sat on the balcony. We were firing water pistols off the balcony at people. Just being teenagers. Even though we were 22, we were just being completely daft. And I think you and Claire were out working one day.
No, we'd gone out for dinner. We'd gone out for a nice meal.
And yes, and Rob, the other guy, had just arrived, and we were sat on the balcony being silly.
Yeah, can I just put my point of view here just to sort of set the scene before you explain what happened?
Yeah.
So we got back from this nice meal. We got back to where the apartment door was down the corridor, and all our stuff was just in a pile outside the door, and we were like, what the fuck? And we tried to open the door and it was locked. So we just sort of like started getting all of our stuff together, and then I think we basically, I don't know whether we bumped into the owner and he explained what had happened, but do you want to go on and explain what happened?
I mean, we were sat on the balcony, and I think a couple of days before, we might have fired a water pistol, and it might have hit the owner's relative. which obviously is not a very good thing to do. It was a very hot day, so I'd imagine they would have dried off pretty quickly. But, not really what you do, is it? And so he came up and gave us a really stern warning and was like, you don't do that. Don't do that here. Okay, sorry, sir. We won't do it again. And then we were sat on the balcony, and I don't know if it was me or if it was another guy. I've got a feeling it was Rob, but someone threw half a sandwich off the balcony that they were eating.
My memory is that it was Rob.
I don't really
obviously I wasn't there, but like from my understanding, it was Geek that did it.
And the sandwich went over and hit the same elderly relative who happened to be walking past at the same time. So the guy comes upstairs with the bat. Do you want to leave by bat, or do you want to leave a different way? And we were like, we'll choose the other way, please. Although James didn't take it very well. James, who was a big guy, he was about 6'3" or something and quite big, was like, no, you're not throwing me out. But he quickly succeeded to the bat. So, yes, that was the very brief period where we lived together that summer, wasn't it?
Yeah, so Rich wasn't in very good books with my girlfriend at the time then, and I don't think she was very happy about staying friends. But with his incessant charm, I think you managed to win her over again. We're allowed to remain friends.
But I think as maybe part of the reason was that I liked you DJ, and when I saw you DJ somewhere, or maybe it was just that I felt sorry that we got you kicked out of the apartment. But I was like, why don't you come and DJ with us at Play 2? I think you were good. I remember, didn't you play it? Was it Tonic or something you played?
Yeah.
I remember seeing you play somewhere and was like, he's good. He should play with us down there. So we got you on at Play 2 with us. So we started hanging out more because we were doing the gigs there every week, and we both decided to go and attempt to get the same job. I tried to get a PR job, but I didn't have the face for it, I don't think. So we ended up selling discount cards for this guy called Mark, who ran a club called Tonic, where you just basically go around hotels and try and sell these sort of €10 discount cards or whatever they were that give you money off in different places, it was fine at the start of the season, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But by the middle of the season, lots of places got tired of people turning up with these discount cards trying to get discounts, so they were refusing them. So you'd be walking down the street, just minding your business, and you'd hear, "Hey, you! Those cards are useless. Come here!" And you'd have to like run away. You'd be like, "I'm sorry, I'm just selling them. They're not my cards." But that was our job, wasn't it? But you were great at that. You were a great card seller.
Yeah, I was a bit of a wheeler dealer doing that. I used to wear I used to get different coloured polo shirts that looked like the reps of the hotels that I was going into. I didn't claim to be a rep, but I thought I'd wear that, so it was like giving people more of a sense of trust.
It's a good idea.
But so once I was in a hotel room doing my pitch, and there was a knock at the door, and one of the reps came in, one of the actual reps, and caught me doing that in a uniform that was supposed to be one of their uniforms, but it was Dan.
Dan.
And that's how I met Dan. And he was just like, "You're all right, carry on, mate. Go on, you can sell them. It's all good with me." And then I mean he's been one of our oldest friends, hasn't he?
25 years now, probably.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, shout out to Dan.
Always. So back then, I would say that I was a bit mad. Would you agree?
Yeah.
I'm very surprised that I made it through the summer without some sort of death. And in fact, the injury that I sustained probably allowed my life to continue a little bit longer. But it was carnage. I mean, like I didn't have any money, and I didn't really need any, because the food was always free, because it was Bombay Bad Boy pot noodles that they gave away.
Yeah, they were doing a promotion. Pot Noodle were doing a promotion, and they just drive a little. It was like a golf buggy type thing, wasn't it? With just a little kind of mini van, and they just give free Bombay Bad Boys off the back, wouldn't they?
That was my dinner every day. Every day Bombay Bad Boys, and then out all night, and then sleep all day, and then get up and eat more Bad Boys and do it again. Crazy times. But then I think midway through the season, I drunkenly came back with my friend to someone else's hotel, and we were trying to get into this hotel. I think it was a hotel called the Paraiso that's now something else.
Which is now the Hard Rock Hotel in San Antonio.
And you had to be staying there to get in. So we were like, we'll just go around the back and jump over the wall. And just, it was about, I don't know, 10-foot wall or something like that, 12-foot wall. And I just had those little flat plimsolls on, and I jumped over the wall, and I was like, oh,
well, what
good.
happened was there was a little kind of, the little walls that you get around gardens that's sort of like a couple of inches high, and I think you landed on that.
Anyway, I was on the floor, and I couldn't actually walk. I'd shattered all the bottom of my feet, and the security guy came up and he's like, shouting at me in Spanish. I didn't speak any Spanish back then, and he's just like kicking me along the floor to get me out of the hotel, and basically like manhandled me out of the hotel because I couldn't walk. And I crawled back to my apartment and crawled up the stairs. And that's where I stayed for about 6 weeks, for pretty much most of, I think it was a bit of July and quite a bit of August. Maybe it was 4 weeks until my feet were well enough for me to walk again. But then, when I was well enough to walk again, or at least well enough to sort of hobble, I was itching to get back down to the gigs at Play 2 to DJ. So despite all the stuff that I'd put him through, my mate Jamie came and he carried me down to Play 2.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, you weighed probably 60 kilos, piss wet through back then, so it was quite easy to carry you. I think it'd be a different story now. But yeah, I used to carry you down there. It was probably like, I don't know, a kilometre from the house to the club, and then you'd have to sit on a bar stool, wouldn't you, to DJ because you couldn't stand on your feet. Yeah. And then I used to have to take you on my back to the toilet every time you needed to go for a wee and hold you in front of the urinal.
Mad. But it was a fantastic summer, wasn't it? I mean, like, if we didn't necessarily get loads of DJ gigs and make it as DJs that summer, what we did do is we met each other, and we got an idea of what we wanted to do with our lives. We had the bug for it, and we were keen to make something of our music. We just
were, like whatever was happening with that electronic music scene, that's what we wanted to do in whatever capacity. I mean, we were all about anything. Sort of parties and putting on parties and DJing back then. Like production wasn't even in the sort of mental ether, was it?
Do you remember the Garland's pool parties from that summer?
I was just going to say, let's talk about the Garland's pool parties, because I think they were like a real kind of special standout moment.
Shout out to Garland's for your 2002 pool parties. They will go down in history as people still talk about them now.
Yeah. So what was it? It was like it was a celebrity theme, wasn't it? Every time they had they had the face of a celebrity.
Yeah. Yeah.
On each one, although
different venues.
Yeah, I can't remember.
There's one at Kenya. That was good.
Yeah.
That was a really good one. What was that? The bar here.
The most memorable one for me, and not for good reason, was the bar here, where they did some of the Radio 1 Weekender parties.
Had some special punch, didn't they? If I remember rightly.
Yeah, they always had special punch with a very unusual type of alcohol in there that we won't elaborate on too much, but you can use your imagination. And whether this was just me sort of like not knowing how Shad had or being spiked or whatever, I don't know. But the upshot is that I decided to leave the party with my girlfriend and go and get food, and then I was going to come back later. And I felt fine. And on the way back, it was maybe like a mile walk back to where we lived. I'm walking down the promenade, and I just said that I needed to pop for a quick wee because I was busting, busting, and there was some bushes just off the beach. So I went down from the promenade around onto the beach to go for a wee, and then never came back. And my girlfriend went looking for me for hours and hours and hours. She went back to the party, didn't know where I was, and then I turned up. So just a little precursor to this, I had a bag with loads of people's stuff in it, including one of the guys that was that was at the DJ the DJ's wanted meeting.
Yeah.
And
you had his passport.
I had his passport and his wallet and other stuff from other people. Anyway, I turned up back to this party a few hours later with blood running down my face and nobody's stuff and no idea what was going on. And my girlfriend at the time was just like, "Where is everything,
where's the
Jamie?"
bag? Whack!
Smack around the face like that, trying to like knock some sense into me, and I didn't know what had happened, and still to this day I don't know what had happened. I think probably I was mugged.
I think you probably stolen.
Yeah, I think probably somebody came and like clonked me over the head and yeah, robbed everybody's stuff. But that poor guy whose passport and wallet I had on me had to go home because of that, which was a real shame. One less DJ for competition on the island, though.
Take them out one by one, Jamie. So that summer, obviously, like all summers do, had to come to an end. I remember landing back in the UK in my flip flops and my sort of baggy Ibiza pants, and walking off into the cold air, the cold sort of in September or October, and just been like, I need to get out of here as soon as possible. This is so alien. This feels so alien to me. Like, having been there for a while, and like, I remember going back to my little village where I lived and walking up to the shop and just being like, everything's changed. Everything's changed for me now. My whole view, my whole outlook on life is completely different. And now I need to keep doing this. I need to work out a way that I can make this my reality. So
yeah. I went back, same deal. It felt like a real shock to the system. That was the first time I'd been away from the UK for that amount of time. No, I hadn't actually. Greece was similar, but I think Ibiza was just a different kettle of fish. It felt like just such a magical, different world. And then getting back to England seemed very very drab. And then me and the girl that I was with didn't last much longer after that, and I was kind of feeling a little like I needed a change. I didn't want to be in Hull anymore, and but I didn't know what to do.
So in the summer before this, so this must have been around 2001, early 2002. I again, when I needed money, I'd sometimes get a job for a couple of months just so I could get some money to go and do something musically, and then quit. Or what I started doing was promoting a little bit, just organising the events in like bars and sorting the DJs out and getting people down there. And I went into a bar in Barnsley and met the guy who owned it. And I said, "You've got a bar downstairs that you don't use." He's like, "Nobody wants to go down there." And I was like, "Well, why don't you give it to me and let me run it? And we'll just work out some sort of split on that, and I'll sort all the DJs out. I'll paint it all up. I'll make it into like an underground sort of, experience." And he was like, "Well, it's not going to cost me anything. You can do what you want." So I did, and I made it quite good down there. I made it a little hotspot. I got loads of local DJs down, got loads of the local scene involved, the record shop. I got Galaxy 105 DJs down and filled it out, and it went really well. It was a good thing for the town and the pub. Eventually, I actually moved upstairs for a little bit and lived above the pub. And I remember the guy who owned it was like, I'm not making you do any work here. You've got one job to do. All you've got to do is get up on a Wednesday morning at 7:00 and let the guy in to bring the beers. That's your only job for the week, other than the bar downstairs. Yeah. I never got up any day. Every single time they'd be just bang, bang, banging on the door. I'd be like, "What's going on, Richard? Sorry, I slept in again." But I was good at the nighttime stuff, better than the day. But so the reason I've gone back in time to tell you about this is when I got back from Ibiza and I didn't know what to do next. And randomly out of the blue, I get a phone call from the same guy who owns the bar in Barnsley. And he said, "I'm opening a bar in Wakefield and I'd like you to come and do the music." And I was like, "All right, that sounds good. Let me have a think about it." Thought about it for about 5 minutes, and I was like, "Yes, I'll do it." So at this time, I think my mum was just about ready to turf me out of the house anyway. So it worked quite nicely to just move over to Wakefield, find a really cheap room in a bedsit, because I didn't have any money. So I got the cheapest place I could in a bedsit, moved in and threw a mattress on the floor, and then my phone rings and it's Jamie. And he says, "Oh, how are you doing?" I'm thinking, I haven't spoke to you for a while. What you've been up to? He said, "Oh, I've split up with my girlfriend now." I was like, "What are you doing?" He was like, "I don't know." I was like, "Why did you come down here to Wakefield and run this bar with me. I said, we won't want to do any actual work. All we've got to do is turn up and DJ every night, and we get free booze. And if anyone who's known Jamie, if you tell him that you can go somewhere and DJ every night and you get free booze, I don't think there's anything else that I could have offered you that would have been better than that, is there? But Jamie had a job at the time. Jamie had a real job as well, in the daytime. And so I was just doing the bar at night and just DJing. Jamie was having to go to a real job in the daytime and then come to the bar at night. How did that go?
Yeah, so I mean, I was working at N-Power in Hull at the time, and I said that I was thinking of moving to Wakefield, and did they have anything near there? So they said, yeah, we've got something in Leeds, actually. We can transfer you to Leeds. So we organised all that, and I came over, and let's just sort of explain what hours we were working at XS Bar. So it was 7 nights a week. Monday to Thursday was 7 until 11. Is that right?
Probably like
and
that,
then
yeah.
Friday, I think it was Sunday to Wednesday, and then Thursday to Saturday was until 2 a.m.
Yeah, something
Is that
like
right?
that, wasn't it? It was a lot.
Yeah. So what I would do is to get from where we lived in Wakefield to my job in Leeds, it was a 25-minute walk to the train station, a train to Leeds, then a bus to Scarcroft where N-Power was, and it'd take me an hour and a half each way. So I'd have to get up. I think I had to leave my house at 7:30 to be able to get into work at 9, and I was always late because if one bus or train's late, it just throws the whole thing off. So I'd set off at 7:30 in the morning. I'd finish work at 5. I'd get back to our house at 6:30, get a quick shower, leg it down into town, grab a Burger King on the way, and I'd be at XS Bar for 7, and then be DJing until 11 o'clock.
And this guy who ran the bar, Steve, is a bit of a cheapskate, and he got some cheap knockoff wine from off the back of a van somewhere, and he was like, "Lads, this wine's super cheap. You can have as much of it as you want." So we were just like, "We don't really like wine, but all right."
We still had to pay. We had to pay for it though, didn't we?
But it wasn't like £1 or £2 a bottle or something.
It was £2 a bottle.
£2 a bottle. So we were just drinking pints of wine while we were DJing all night.
Yeah, I mean, we would go through sometimes 3 bottles of wine each a night.
Absolutely mad. Absolutely mad.
Like, if I drink 1 bottle of wine, I'm feeling like terrible the next day now.
So as you imagine, sometimes he was late for work.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't because of that. It was always because of the buses and the trains, but because they knew that I was doing that. Because I would I'm a grafter. I got up and like got set off on time and stuff. But because they knew that I was like DJing every night, I'd come in like still stinking of booze, and I was I was good at my job, and I made an effort, and when I was in the office, I was good. But this, every single night of the week, 7 days a week, that went on for 8 months. And as we were getting towards the end of it, the guys at work were just like, "Look, you need to move to Leeds. We can't keep having you being late all the time because you're living in Wakefield and missing the trains and stuff." So,
and this house is really grotty in Wakefield.
Yeah,
it was a bed sit, and it was a mattress was on the floor job. It was we had a cardboard box that we used as a table in one of the rooms that we used to eat food off. These were poor times, but they were good times. They were fun times. We'd go to the shop, get 8 cans of beer for £5. Have a mix,
and we were living right in the middle of Studentsville as
Yeah.
well, so we got to know loads of the students around there, and we got to know some nice people around there, didn't we?
But eventually, it was time to move on, and we were keen to progress our DJing beyond just DJing in a bar in Wakefield. We wanted to, we'd always both been attracted by Leeds. I love Leeds. I've always loved Leeds.
Well, yeah. So let's just wind back to Ibiza in 2002 because all the people that we knew from different places there were all moving to Leeds, weren't they? Because that was where it was happening.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't remember like, if there was like specific clubs and stuff that people wanted to, but I think it was more of a sort of snowball effect of a few people started to move there, so everybody just wanted to move there.
Yeah.
So there was always that in the back of our minds. But then, I mean, it was kind of serendipitous that that we ended up getting kicked out of the bar, didn't we? Because that guy...
we got undercut.
Yeah, we got undercut. I can't remember what his name was.
So some kid came in and just said, "Look, I like what these guys are doing down here, but I'll do it all, and I'll do it all for free." So the guy who ran the bar was like, "Lads, it's been nice knowing you, but
yeah,
off you pop." So all these things came together at the same time, and we were like, "Right, let's do it. Let's go and look at some places in Leeds. Let's let's put ourselves out there, go and try and get some gigs in Leeds, and move on to the next thing. So we went to Leeds, and we got a place to live, which was way swankier than what we could afford, way swankier than what we were.
It was kind of like let's just get this, and then we're going to have to find ways to earn more money to be able to afford it. But I mean, it was such an upgrade from that scabby little place in Wakefield to a really swanky. I mean, we even started like playing like swanky music in the house, didn't we?
Walking around with our dressing gowns and like a glass of wine, like, hi, we're 80s yuppies.
I mean, we used to love the film with Neil and I, didn't we? So we just kind of like would get into the Richard E. Grant character, wouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we had some great times in that place, though. Do you remember we foiled a couple of robberies, didn't we?
Oh yeah.
Remember? So we used to just hang out the balcony, which was looking over a sort of a back street in Leeds, and we'd go and smoke off the balcony. And we saw. Well, I think we foiled one robbery and saw another one, which was a bit more sinister. But one we saw this guy sort of try and get into the back of his van with a screwdriver, didn't we? So we got a super soaker and shot him with it, and then bobbed down off the balcony.
I forgot about that. See, I didn't learn my lesson about the super soakers.
And then every time he'd sort of like return to trying to jimmy open the lock, would get him again with the super soaker. I think eventually he was just like, oh fuck this, and like run off. But then the other time, which was a lot more sinister, there was a construction site at the end of the alley. And there was like a security guard sort of posted outside the door, and there was a BMW down underneath. So we were like 3 floors up, something like that. And there was a BMW down right below where we were. And this van pulled up behind it with these like 4 guys. I think it was like 4 guys, maybe 2 or 3. I can't remember now. But they started to try and get into the BMW. And the security guard, who was about 50 meters away, started to kind of run down and shoo them off. And as soon as they saw him coming, they went back to the van, and they all got axes and chased him. And he luckily managed to get back inside the construction site and lock the door before they got him. But that could have turned out really nasty. But yeah, I mean, I think they managed to like nick the car and get away there. But yeah.
But we still love Leeds, don't we?
Yep.
And we had some amazing time. We all love Leeds. So where did it? Can you remember what the first club we went to in Leeds was?
Probably Federation. Yeah, because I mean that was like just going back to the sort of funky house sound in Ibiza in 2002. Like everyone was into that. They all moved to Leeds, and Federation was where they were going. Before that, as a sort of warm up, was Fibre, wasn't it, in Queen's Court? Yeah. That was the place to go. So we'd go there, and all the people that we knew from Ibiza would be out there, and it was great.
It was very refreshing, like having been in, Wakefield in a bar where you get a very mixed crowd, to be
a bit rough sometimes.
Back in Leeds, to be in Leeds, and to feel that sort of like that, a bit more of a connection to the Ibiza vibe at some places, to be in like gay friendly places and a nice mixed crowd without aggression and stuff like that. It was just really, we felt like we were where we wanted to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we went there, didn't we? We used to go to Space on Wednesdays or Thursdays, I think it was. That was like a good midweek house music night. There was BRB, which was a great bar, which we'll come on to again soon. And
then we decided that we needed to get some gigs. We decided to DJ together, didn't we?
Yep.
And so what did we call ourselves?
Oh, it makes me cringe, but we called ourselves the Soul Brothers.
We didn't. I don't know if we even did any gigs as the Soul Brothers. We might have done 1 or 2, but
oh no, I think we did. I think we did quite a lot. We had a residency at Fudge. So interestingly enough, like I sort of like looked back at Fudge and thought it was. I do remember some fun nights there, but I didn't think it was that much of a credible place. But then I saw Frenchie posted a party of that he used to play at before our time at Fudge. And there was Ralph and Wooly and like loads of like really well-respected Leeds DJs playing there. I was like, okay, yeah, maybe Fudge wasn't such a bad place to play. And then we also got gigs up at the was that called the Church as well? Up on the way up into Headingley.
Yeah, right.
It was like an old church that had been converted, and we started playing there a bit, didn't we?
Yeah, but we quickly realised that Leeds was big pond and we were very small fish.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of DJs in Leeds and a lot of people wanting to play, and we didn't really have a reason to push into those things. We sort of sat down and had a chat about it, and we're like, what do you need to do to get to be a bookable DJ? Like, what would make us attractive? So we came up with about 3 things.
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing was to start your own club night. But
we didn't have any money.
Yeah, we didn't have any money for that. Although we did have a little bit of experience, but yeah, definitely no money to start that sort of thing in Leeds. And then the other thing was to
Start a label?
Start a record label. But again, that the record labels were about vinyl then, and you needed to be able to have the capital to start that up, which we didn't have. And then the third option was to make music and try and release some records and do it that way. And that was literally the only option where it was possible to afford that. And neither of us, I think you did have a computer at that time, but we needed to get a dedicated computer to make music on, didn't we? So we got an old PC for 50 quid, didn't we?
Yeah. An awful piece of kit.
Yeah.
And a cracked copy of Fruity Loops.
Yeah, which was just all we could A, afford, and B, was available at the time. So yeah, for FL Studio 5, or I don't know if it was called Fruity Loops back then, but
because we're not that invested at this time, we're just like, let's dip our toes in this, see if we can do it, see if we can even make it work, make anything interesting. So nice cheap setup.
Just as a little caveat to the people at Imageline, if you're listening, we did buy a proper version of Fruity Loops as soon as we got serious with it. So
we did. But this place we lived was an apartment, and the acoustics weren't great.
No, we set it up in the lobby, didn't we?
Yeah. So it was a lot of like in the headphones or listening out loud, but the computer kept glitching all the time. So it was hard to sort of listen to anything for more than like 4 or 5 seconds.
Do you know what? Like I'd forgotten about that, and now hearing it again, I wonder if that glitchy nature had an influence on our music because that was kind of our sort of signature in the early days, wasn't it? That sort of that glitchy vibe.
So we both had to get jobs to pay for our swanky apartment and to live. So we were doing work in the day, and then at night we would buy a cheap 2-litre bottle of cider from Morrison's, cheapest one they got.
Yeah, farmhouse cider for £2.50, I think it was.
And go sit at the computer and try and make music until we were too tired and we had to go to sleep. And then
it was evenings and weekends, wasn't it? And I think literally the only place that we would go out in that year was down to BRB.
Yeah.
And this was a little bit later on when we'd started to feel like the tracks were.
So we're talking what year? 2004?
No.
3?
2005.
5.
Summer 2005 is when we first. So we started making a few tracks summer 2005.
Yeah, that's right.
And then later, so we'll come back to BRB, but later that summer, when we decided that we wanted to really make a go of it, we went and spent the day in Hyde Park, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
And
lovely sunny day, sitting in Hyde Park.
So we used to love to just go down there and have a couple of joints and build like villages out of twigs and leaves and things like that, didn't we? So we were just sat there all day that day trying to come up with a concept for this act that we were going to put together.
While making little villages out of sticks in the floor. Like, just get little sticks, tear them all up, tie them all together, and before you know it, you can make a little village. Fun thing to do.
We had people coming in and taking pictures of the village later that day, didn't we?
But we were chatting names and we were chatting about what we wanted to do and what sound we wanted to do. And we'd had so many influences musically. Like, we knew we had to make a decision that felt right for us, but also was right for the time.
Yeah, maybe we should talk a little bit about the sort of the musical change that had happened between getting to Leeds and the funky house stuff, and then the 2005 when we started to make music, because that's when electro house had really started to become big. Like music like Teef Schwartz and or acts like Teef Schwartz and King Rock and people like that. Switch, yeah.
Dave Taylor.
Yeah, and that sort of felt very exciting and futuristic, and it also seemed quite accessible to make that music because it was all kind of synthy noises rather than, you know, like the more sort of complicated stuff with full vocals and orchestral sounds and stuff that was in the funky house stuff.
I think we were the biggest Switch fans at that
Yeah.
time. Like, so good, so
Yeah.
good. But again, it's, you know, all our friends were into it as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, you move as a flock, don't you?
Yeah,
some ways.
absolutely. And, you know, we'd get you get the CDs off the front of the magazines back then. DJ Mag, Mix Mag, Music Mag, all had sort of cover CDs. And I remember two of our favourites one was there was a DJ Face Off series on DJ Mag, and one was Justin Robertson and I forget who he went with, and then Paul Wolford and Howie B. And those two just had all of this kind of like electro stuff on there that was really exciting to us all. And we'd put the CDs on at after parties with our mates and just be like, wow, this music's amazing. And it was at that stage where we were kind of like, we really wanted to sort of get involved in it and start making the music. And that day on Hyde Park, we knew that we wanted to have this sort of like futuristic, glitchy electronic sound, and we were trying to come up with names. And I think one of the so like electro, you know, got kind of bandied about just because that was the sound, and you know, we obviously realised that was kind of too obvious. I think we
and pigeonholing as well. Like, you know, you're stuck in that thing, then, aren't you?
Yeah, so we'd thought of the name Electrojack. Now, Electrojack meant Jack of electro music. So, but then we thought, well, electro is, yeah, like Rich said, you know, just too pigeonholing, and too, you know, if we move on from that music, it's not going to be relevant anymore. So we just needed something that was a little bit more general. So then we thought of Audiojack, and that meant a jack of sound. Now, it didn't occur to either of us that it's the thing that you plug something into on a piece of music equipment at the time, because we might have been dissuaded by that. But I remember in Brazil a few years later when we were on tour, Cedric, I can't remember his last name now, but it was like he was taking the piss out of us one and saying, "Why didn't you call yourselves MIDI cable?" But we had no idea we knew what an audio jack was, but it just never occurred to us at that time. It just kind of meant a jack of sound.
And you've got to remember, we were very green. Like we didn't know a lot. Like we were from small towns. We knew what we liked. We knew what we liked. We knew like going out and partying, but we didn't really know a lot about how the industry works or about, like, you know, the music industry at all. We just were keen.
Yeah, so we came up with the concept that, you know, this was the sort of music that we were going to do, and then we said, right, for the next year, let's make this happen. So
everything else to one side. This is the focus.
Yeah. So we just started writing music, didn't we? Can you remember some of the tracks? Like, I mean, I've got them, got some of them recently that I put onto my phone, but I can remember some of the.
Yeah, I can remember some.
So go on and see if you can remember.
What from the first demo? So the first demo would have had The Actor's Nest.
No, not. No, I'm talking about even earlier than that.
Oh, like there's that track that goes that we always laugh about. That it sounded like it was supposed to say "shake it, fake it," but it sounded like "shake it, bacon."
Yeah, no, I mean that was even further down. So the first proper track that we made was "Slut." Do you remember that?
Oh God, yeah.
Now I get my kicks on the floor, which was kind of like an electro clash thing. It was more like kind of had like guitar-y sort of sounds in there as well. It was a bit more kind of Errol Alkan.
Oh my God, do you remember Digital Bill?
Yeah.
Was that one of the first ones as well?
Yeah. Digital Bill was quite early.
That lyrics that went like this: "Digital Bill, why do you look so ill?"
Yeah, so basically on Fruity Loops there was a kind of text-to-speech thing that sort of gave you this sort of Stephen Hawking type vocal, and that was the only access to vocals we had then, because there was nothing like Loop Cloud or Splice where you can download samples.
There's no internet for this kind of thing.
Yeah, you just literally had what was there on Fruity Loops, and then eventually we found that you could buy sample CDs from eBay that had loads of samples in. So we started to do that. And also Music Tech magazine and other magazines like that for producers had cover CDs with samples on as well. So that was kind of where we were getting everything from. No vocals though. I mean, it was very, very difficult to get vocals back then. So that's why this kind of electronic sound was viable for us back then. But yeah, I mean, We've got like Loco, which was
Yeah, I remember.
that was inspired by DC-10. So we were in DC-10, and because of the sound system in there, because the bass felt so booming, we kind of tried to create a booming sounding bass on the track. I mean, you know, when you listen back to the production on that, it sounds terrible, but you know, the
Can we play clips of any of these stuff?
yeah, we can play clips of all this stuff. So I mean, do you want to like play a little clip now, and that so we can
Yeah, sure.
refresh our memory on some of this stuff?
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's listen to Slut. So that's all kind of very. That was more like the sort of like the commercial side of the electro stuff that was going around then, which I actually did quite like at the time as well. And I remember when we submitted the when Jay, who we'll come on to this in more detail later, but when he was listening to that CD, he was just kind of like, this is all like that sort of more commercial stuff.
Yeah,
That you know everybody's doing.
Let's have a look. What else have we got?
So let's listen to Loco. And then, yeah, Digital Bill. Computer Talk.
Computer Talk. That was I liked that one.
I mean, I still really like the Maurice Schlong disco dancing.
Disco dancing. Disco dancing.
And it'd be rude.
Pandora's Box.
So that's got very kind of A-sided influences, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Although done with a little less finesse.
Yeah.
Do you know Night Train, I think, was one of the first ones. This is clearly influenced by King Rock,
Yeah.
Left Right Switch.
King Rock, sadly, another person who is no longer with us, but he was what a wonderful man he was. Martin Dawson,
Yeah.
King Rock. He helped us a lot when we first started with no, we had nothing, but he was always happy to listen to our tunes, give us feedback, make introductions.
Yeah.
Big fan of his music around that time, weren't we?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, he continued to make great music, you know, post electro stuff as well. That you know has always had a place in our record box, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's some of the early stuff that we made, which has not really ever been heard by anybody, apart from a few people who might have come down to a bar called BRB in Leeds.
Yeah. So yeah, that's good little segue into that actually. So BRB was on Call Lane. I think it went on until 2:00 in the morning, but it had like a good sound system in there, and they always had DJs on there.
They had Dan Tate playing.
Yeah,
Matt Cooper.
And Matt Cooper.
And Danny did some gigs down there, didn't he?
Maybe
a bit later.
I don't think. I don't think I ever met Denny until the Basics days.
Oh right, okay. But yeah, it was Matt and Dan.
Yeah,
and they would play our stuff.
Yeah. We'd take a CD down, and then we'd get it road tested, and we'd be able to see A, if it sounded good on a big sound system, and B, if people actually danced to it. So
Spoiler alert, on A, it didn't. We'd think we'd have it sounding right at home. We'd like, that sounds great. And then someone would play it in a bar at a slightly different pitch or something like that. And we'd be like, oh, no, it's all...
Yeah, I mean, I think by the time we started taking stuff down BRB, it was getting better. I remember I don't remember the name of the bar, but it was really close to Merchant's House.
North Bar.
It wasn't North Bar. It was, I remember...
Oh, I know what you mean. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but I remember we took that. I think that was the first time we'd ever played one of our tracks out on a big system, and I was devastated at how bad it sounded.
Yeah.
But that's just because we didn't know anything about mixing. Like music production mixing. Do you know? I think we should probably at this point have a bring up MySpace, because that was very, very pivotal in Audiojack and kind of what gave us like a following, because all of this music that we made, we posted on MySpace, didn't we?
Well, that's right. When we first started, and there was just MySpace, the days before Facebook, and obviously long before Instagram or TikTok or anything like that. But MySpace, for anybody who is too young to remember it, was a place where it was like a social network where you could upload tracks.
I mean, essentially, SoundCloud is probably the closest thing to MySpace now, isn't it?
And you could add people. So we just put all our songs up, and I just spent ages and ages just sat there, just adding, like finding people who I thought might like the music, finding like similar people, and just adding them. And we were just getting loads and loads of good feedback. It was our entry point, really.
Yeah, I mean, people came on the journey with us, didn't they? The shit first tracks that went up, and then they saw things like gradually improving, and they were giving us feedback. So by the time we finally got something signed, we already had like a nice little like group of people that were interested in our music, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe we should talk about first going to basics.
Yeah,
because we were a bit scared of going to basics, weren't we? Because like we thought it was maybe a little bit too cool and underground for us. We'd be going to like
it was
Fiber and Federation and stuff like that. And I remember the first time I went to basics, it was the first time that I went to basic for sure. I'm not sure if you ever went before I did, but it was at Rehab.
Yeah, I remember
and I remember that the music was kind of very sort of like the sort of loopy tribal stuff. I'm guessing this must have been in sort of 2003 or 4 that we went there. And I didn't like it very much. It seemed, I think they were like it felt like a sort of a bit of a footballery crowd when I went there at that time.
It was next to the Corn Exchange there, wasn't it, in Rehab? And it was quite a sort of like, it was a bit like footballery, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, not really what basics is about, really.
No. And it wasn't until they moved to Stinkies and we went again that I was like, wow, this place is amazing. Yeah. Like, still to this day, I don't think that any atmosphere has matched that little dance floor in the front of at the front of Stinky's Peep House. It was like being at like a sports match and having like people jumping around like maniacs.
I remember thinking my first experience with Back to Basics was probably when did this come out? It was the Cut the Crap CD. It was in a gold box, and it was mixed by, I think Ralph did one, Weatherall did one, and there was a third one that was somebody else who was good, but I can't remember. And I remember listening to it at home and being like, "Wow, this is really cool. One day maybe I'll be cool enough to really get this." But it went a little bit over my head at that time. I think it was probably early 2000s. And when we moved to Leeds, I remember like thinking, "Wow," like finding it a little bit intimidating, the thought of going there. But once it moved to Stinkies, like you say, everything found its place, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and another place that was like, equally as exciting to us back then was DC-10, wasn't it?
Yes. And Space in Ibiza and DC-10 in Ibiza.
Yeah. They were the ones that were that we were in love with.
Yeah.
And we were going like after coming back from Ibiza in 2002, we'd go quite frequently, wouldn't we, during the summers for little trips on holiday and eventually Definitely. DJing as well.
So that summer of 2005, where we had started making music, we're dipping our toes in, but we knew that we weren't really good enough to get anything, signed yet or played there. But we were out there in Ibiza, we were in Circle Loco at DC-10, and we were having a lovely time. And Jamie just turned around to me and said,
we should try and make a track to get played in DC-10. So that was kind of
That's a great idea.
our ambition. If we could get a track played in DC-10, then we would have made it.
That will be it.
That was like the milestone at that point that we had to try and achieve.
Yeah, and then we got home and kept that feeling of that club in mind, that sound system, the music we were hearing, and then a few months later we started making a record with that in mind.
Yeah. So April 2006 or something like that. But when do you think it was when we first decided that we were ready and sent a demo CD out?
This I do know because I've done a little bit of research to find this out. So it was mid-February 2006 when we sent out a 7-track demo to labels including 2020 Vision, Defected, Great Stuff, CR2, Azuli, and King Size. And we received almost no replies and no offers. The only person who replied was Azuli. He was like, "Yeah, sounds good." It was a thanks, but keep sending stuff kind of vibes.
No, thanks.
But yeah, nothing from 2020, nothing from any of the labels. And obviously, when we say we're sending out a demo here, what I mean is we're burning a CD and putting it in the post and sending it sometimes to Germany, sometimes to to the UK. But you'd be dropping them an email in 3 weeks and going, "Have you got the demo yet?" And they'd be like, 9. You're like, "Oh." But yeah, that was very, very disheartening. We were, obviously by then we were convinced that we were gonna, get some replies or get something engaged because we put a lot into this demo, but nothing came of it. So
can you remember what tracks were on there?
I can remember a few. I can remember there was Actor's Nest. Okay, Hole. Sunrise. Robot. I don't know what else.
I can't remember which ones. There's a lot there. Maybe it was like Shake It.
Which was your favourite on the demo? Do you think? It's hard to think, isn't it? If we don't know what all the tracks were.
I was always a fan of OK Hole.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's difficult to remember.
Yeah, I think that was one that I really liked at the time, and I was surprised that didn't get snapped.
Yeah, OK Hole, Computer Talk, I think were probably the ones that I felt were the strongest.
There was I think the last track we put on the CD, or at least in my head, it's the last track that went on the CD that we almost didn't put on.
Yeah, Robot.
Because it was just so weird. and different to the other stuff. Do you think we were naive to think that we were going to get signed just by sending out one demo and that would be it?
No, yes, sorry. I think we were naive because looking back at the music now, it wasn't good enough.
No,
it wasn't up to scratch. We didn't have any. I think the music was very fun and charming, but we didn't have any kind of mixing skills or anything like that. So the music, the quality of the music wouldn't have been good enough to play in clubs, for example. So yeah, I think we were just sort of lacking in experience there.
Yeah. What do you think we learned from sending out the demo? I mean, there was more than those labels. There was quite a few other ones. I think maybe 20 labels in total might have sent, but what did we learn from sending all those out and getting nothing back?
Well, that no one was interested in our music, basically. And no, maybe we weren't ready.
Yes, absolutely that. Absolutely. But we did, as you may already know, eventually get something signed from that CD. But that is a story for the next episode of the currently unnamed Audiojack podcast. Would you like to wrap it up there?
Yeah, let's wrap it up there.
So that's just a little bit of a backstory into Jamie and I, and how we started in music, and how we started Audiojack, where we met, making the first demo, our story from Ibiza to Wakefield to Leeds. And in the next episode, we will talk about what happened with this demo, and how we eventually managed to get something signed from it, and what happened from there.
Right, so thanks very much for listening. Hope that was enjoyable for you, and we'll see you next time.